welcome to the Dharma Journey podcast. Dania, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Dania and I met a couple of months ago in Bali. She's a friend of mine, and yeah, you've just obviously had a big kind of transition going from Germany to Bali and kind of being on your own Dharma journey. And I wanted to interview Dania because we're in similar fields. She's a nutritional scientist and Ayurvedic expert running an Ayurvedic nutrition program, teacher training online, which I think is around a year long. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So as soon as we met, I was like, she's someone I want to hang out with. She seems pretty cool. And you've been obviously practicing studying Ayurveda for a long time. I think was it 10 years or something?
Yeah, oh my gosh, now I have to count back the years. But yeah, I think it's more than 10 years now. Yeah.
Wow. So you probably got into Ayurveda. I mean, I'm 27 and I got into Ayurveda about 23, 24. So you probably got into it the same time as me, but 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's funny because growing up, I always, it's like I didn't know what it was called Ayurveda, but my mom was always into, holistic practice and, medicine is food and food is medicine, shall I say. And that was kind of our mantra growing up is really like, we are what we eat. And so for me, it felt like when I started studying Ayurveda, it was also like a remembrance. It's like I kind of knew it all along, but I'd forgotten it. Was that like for you?
I think it was kind of about the same. I would say, I grew up also with, yeah, my mom being conscious about what I would eat, not too much sugar and yeah, just being more consciously about food choices. But at the same time, there was never a big fuss about nutrition in our house. So I think I had a pretty, let's call it, bad phase where I just as a teenager, you go like, oh, I don't know, I don't want that whole wheat pasta and I just want something else. But when I started studying nutritional science, I think it just brought me back to what I had learned back home. And I think, when we lay the foundations really early in childhood, I think that your taste receptors, just like they more appreciate the food or the natural food. And I think it was just for me a process of getting back to that. And at the same time, while you learn, as you said, in nutritional science, you are what you eat. I always had questions. So I was wondering, there are people who follow a really healthy diet, but they still get sick or anything. So too many questions were still unanswered. So I went to India, to study Ayurvedic medicine. And what makes totally sense for me is that in Ayurveda, you don't say you are what you eat. And of course, it's important what you put into your body. But at the same time, you are what you digest, right? Because like you can put the best food in your body when it's not digested, it's just causing harm. Like it
Mhm.
causes like toxins to be in the body, autoimmune reactions, and all the stuff we see right now in the Western world. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into this more. This for me just fascinates me. And obviously, why I wanted to get you on the Dharma journey is because I know you have that science background, which I think is really powerful. And I definitely don't have that in my practice as much. For me, I've definitely seen Ayurveda as such a powerful tool for empowerment and for self healing. But I also have this question, like you said, is like, okay, people are eating healthy foods, but there's something still not right. They're still manifesting as disease. So we'll definitely would love to talk a little bit about kind of the mind body connection and I know you're launching your book Intuitive Eating, so we're definitely going to touch base on that and give the listeners a little bit of insight into, what is intuitive eating, how can we practice intuitive eating, and really, how can we move away from emotional eating, which I know so many, myself included, used to be a real problem. So yeah, maybe we can start off with the mind-body connection, and what does Ayurveda say about why we get sick?
Yeah, definitely. So I think what you have to keep in mind is that Ayurveda is like a super old medicinal practice, right? And when you said, like, I have that scientific background, some people always say, oh, how can you practice Ayurveda? It's not scientific. But you should not forget that Ayurveda practiced on human beings, to put it like that, for like 3,000 of years, So while with Western medicine and nutritional science, a lot of the studies that are, according to the Western scientific standard, they have been done in animals or in cell cultures, which is fine. It gives us like more detailed information about the metabolism, for example. But you have to keep in mind, each of us is an individual, so even studies in human beings, um, you always have that one individual that is not, reacting to the medicine you give it. And for me, Ayurveda just bridges the gap. And, right now we are not quite there right yet with the modern medicine, and also in nutritional science, to give highly individualized recommendations. I mean, it's slowly starting, with you take a analysis of your gene pool, which was not possible a few years ago. It's amazing how the field develops,
Mm.
but still it's so hard with all that information to extract information that is valid to you, or give recommendation based on that information. And with Ayurveda, it's simple. Although Ayurveda is not simple in that way, or it's a really deep science, but you can extract simple recommendations that are based on the individual. And there are so many ways to read a person, from the appearance, from the speech, from their behavior. Um, Not to put someone in a box, but to give a clue, or get a clue about who that person is and how their metabolism is working right now, and give recommendations based on that, and not because one study said this, so you have to do that, And for me, it's just such a amazing, yeah, complementary tool, because I love to be in both worlds. I still love to be a part of both worlds, and I know that each system has their benefits and their limitations.
Yeah. What would you say Ayurveda's limitations are?
I think limitations can be accessibility of the herbs, for example,
Yeah.
So Ayurveda is really specific, or it originated in India, right? So it's a universal principle, and that's really important to understand. Ayurveda, in that sense, is not Indian, or can only be applied in India. It can be applied anywhere, because it rules are just, rules of nature, right? And they might be different from time zone to time zone. So you have to be really cautious about what you read and how to apply it in a different climate, for example. But, most of the herbs that are really, really prescribed or um, described in detail, they are part of the Indian nature, So I think there are some limitations, and I think we have to find ways to apply that knowledge to our times too. Also, back in the days when it was written, a lot of things were different. There was no technology, there was no blue light in the evening, So I feel like it needs some more scientific integration, like modern scientific integration, and just to see, not to make Ayurveda differently, but to be conscious about what we recommend.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we're evolving. So even though Ayurveda is time tested, and I think some of the principles and of Ayurveda will always evolve with us as we evolve, but it definitely like with the light and with the way the fast-paced growing technology that we're surrounded by, the Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff. They didn't really have that back then. So what would you say there is the limitations in allopathic medicine, in Western medicine, which I believe is more the masculine and the feminine is more the intuitive Ayurveda? I don't know if you believe that or something similar.
I wouldn't put it like into masculine and feminine. I would rather, see it like this. I think Ayurveda always comes from the approach from the individual to the solution or the fact or whatever, and it works from the inside out, you know. And I would say modern medicine works from the outside in, so you have a solution which could be a drug or surgery, whatever,
Yeah.
something that has been proven to be working in a high number of people, and so you apply that to the individual, so you work from the broader spectrum back to the individual. And I think that's something where the two systems are really different, not because they say different things, because it's super important to notice that all the studies that have been published recently, for example, about the microbiome, um, and just our gene pools, epigenetic, it's all written in Ayurveda. I'm not kidding. When Ayurveda said that like our gut is responsible for Alzheimer's disease, and people would laugh about it, oh, why would you do an enema for Alzheimer's disease? It's something in the brain. And now we know it's connected, it's our microbiome that has a huge influence on our immune system, about like things that we experience on the body level, our skin, the brain, even our liver, everything is connected in that sense. And so for me, yeah, that's something that does not mean we have to separate the two systems and this is more feminine, more masculine, whatever, or this is the better approach. I'm so grateful that we have modern medicine, but because, if I have an accident, I'm just, so grateful that like we have the intensive care in modern medicine, that Ayurveda is more like of course you have surgery in Ayurveda too, and you have, um, a lot of things you can do, but it's more thought to be as an integrative medicine, more about also prevention, something that like I think modern medicine is lacking, and nutritional science too.
Why do you think it's lacking that? Like, why do you think modern medicine is lacking the internet in connectivity between the mind body connection? Why do you feel like there's not been so much studies done about how important they are interlinked?
We're getting there, I have to say, because I worked during my doctoral thesis. I worked at an integrative hospital, and we did a lot of studies on meditation, yoga, nutrition. And there are a lot of institutes around the world now, even in Harvard, that do a lot of research on that, the mind body connection. Still, a lot of scientists laugh about it. It's not taken seriously. It's a huge publication bias. If you hand in a study about the mind body connection or meditation to a journal, a scientific journal, it's way harder to get that article published.
Really? Oh, I
It
didn't.
is definitely, yeah, because, it's also harder to do, like when you look at the standard and studies, it's placebo controlled medicine, and you cannot give a placebo versus yoga, so people will always know that they do yoga. So there are a few things that are really hard to do, but there are other factors that you can control for, right? So that's my big wish, and I hope that like this field of research will be taken more seriously. But sorry, now I forgot the initial question. Remind me again.
Oh, I forgot too.
I think you asked
Mind body
why.
connection, because to just to go back a little bit, I find it really funny with the placebo effect. I think same with when people are diagnosed with cancer and they the doctors tell them how long they've got to live, or they say, oh, you may have cancerous genes. It's like the mind is so powerful that necessarily if you're telling someone how long they're going to live, I think it's like 60% of people die within that frame of the is it called prognosis, diagnosis. And so how powerful is the mind? But obviously we can give people placebo to get well, and the mind will also prove that we can get well even through placebo. And do you think there's a link there? Because I mean, I believe that the mind is really powerful. I know how like loads of people like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and other scientists are really going hard on the holistic kind of approach and the mind body connection. Do you feel that there's going to be a change, a revolution in allopathic medicine in the next 10, 20, 50 years?
Yeah, I don't like to call it allopathic medicine because I feel like it labels something, that I hope as you do that will evolve to recognize that there are more connections in the body. And I think that was your initial question. Why do we not focus on that preventive care? And I think the answer is that Western medicine is highly specified, right? Like there's a specialist for the liver, there's a specialist for the brain, there's a specialist for the gut. And I saw that, while doing research too, like you focus on one tiny little thing and you're an expert in that field, which is important, but we always have to zoom out, and see the whole, and how it's connected, So I think that's something that, yeah, modern medicine is still lacking, and also reading the body, in modern medicine we all always we go into a therapy when it's almost too late, right? When there has been serious damage to the body.
Mm,
And Ayurveda is specialized in reading the early symptoms, long before the onset of the disease, and to bring that into balance so that the disease will not develop. And I
Can you
think it's
speak
so
to that?
important.
Maybe the
Sorry.
state? Can you speak to the stages? If you the stages of like accumulation, that the process of disease from an Ayurveda perspective, and how
Yeah.
Ayurveda stops the process before it gets too accumulated in one area. Do you know the stage?
Yeah. There are 6 stages. And one stage is just like starting with, you might experience some unwellness, nothing like really serious. So that's the phase where the doshas might get disturbed. And
Mm,
then you come into that phase, when the dosha is just accumulating somewhere. And then you have the stage where it's like overflowing from its original seed. And that overflowing will cause like more serious symptoms, right?
yeah.
And then while that dosha is just like flowing through all of your body, it will usually get to a place where your tissue, for example, is weak, or somewhere that specific for your body, where it can like accumulate and cause the symptoms, like even more severe symptoms, and ultimately the disease, so that's when it manifests. And we want to go back to the very early stage already, and be really in tune with our body, to realize, oh wow, there's something off here. Not that there's something, already like a disease or a symptom, but I feel like I'm not 100% in balance. How can I get back to that? And that evolves, yeah, or that involves knowing yourself, because if you don't know yourself, enough, and you don't pay attention to the signals in your body, and they're just so different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So your body has a unique language and how it speaks to you, and only you can read it in that sense. And of course, it's always good to get the help from an Ayurvedic practitioner, but you have to become the expert of your body too, right?
Mhm. Oh, I love that. Like I know when if I wake up in the morning and I've done my yoga practice, I've had my my tea or my warm water with a little bit of ghee or something in, and I don't have an elimination within an hour or two of waking up, I realize there's some a little bit of stagnation or a little bit of vata in the colon dryness. So I understand. Okay, okay, what am I going to eat today? Or am I going to eat today? Am I going to wait for me to be eliminated before then eating food, and just having that awareness, whereas before I didn't have any of that awareness. And then I'd get to a place where I felt so out of balance. It was felt like felt really yeah, really struggling. And now it's just, I think the more that we practice and embody these teachings and tools, like you say, we become an expert of our own self, which is really the empowerment piece. And then we know exactly how to maneuver ourselves in the flow of of nature and of our life, because we're always going to be out of balance. I think that's Ayurveda is just how we can become less out of balance, and really fine tune ourselves. Do you notice when you go out of balance quite easily?
Yeah, definitely. There are different signs for that, but at the same time, I don't try to take myself too seriously, because I just know, as you said, there's some days where I'm more in balance. Sometimes, I feel a little whack, you have those mornings. And I think also it's so important that you don't have to immediately do something about it. And that's important when I know you wanted to talk about emotional eating a bit more, that sometimes it's so important, instead of just trying to make it positive again, trying to make it balanced again. We always in that like working, 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 doing,
Yeah.
to be with it, because it's okay to wake up some mornings and feel a little bit off, and then just like take the time, instead of, putting that pressure on you that like your body has to work that way and has to be in balance, to just give it time, give it some rest, give it some love, give yourself the time to have like a slow morning, um, if you can, just, I mean, of course, if you have to go to work, there are some limitations there, but still you can decide to do like the stuff you like most first, instead of being like, oh, it's always best to tick off the hardest task first in the morning,
Yeah.
just to adjust your day according to that. There's so much within your personal frame that you can do.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I would love to speak a little bit about, obviously you've got your book coming out, Intuitive Eating. What channeled that kind of creative energy through you? Did you notice a lot with your clients, like they were struggling with emotional eating, or how did that manifest that vision?
Um, it's really important to say that in my life, I get asked to do certain things, So, as you might know a little bit about human design too, and we have that mutual friend who's really into human design, and I really like that approach. Like, I love like tuning into my personality with astrology, and different systems. There's so many things like the Myers-Briggs, or a Gallup Strength Finder. There's so many tools. Whatever you feel like, I would recommend exploring yourself in that way.
Yeah.
But from a human design perspective, as a generator, you get asked to do certain things. And I think that's an important thing to say, because sometimes people think, oh, they need to be creative. And then this idea bursts out of them, and, there it is. And for me, it has never been like that. Like, I always react to, yeah, my clients' needs. I react to, the broader need, and in this case, it was a publisher who asked me to write a book. And originally, they asked me to write an Ayurvedic cookbook. And
Mm.
then they just changed the idea and they were like, well, actually, we rather would like to go more into the intuitive eating area. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great because for me, Ayurveda and intuitive eating really, yeah, supports each other. And I really wanted to get that dogma out of people's head that Ayurveda is a nutrition system based on rules. It gives you some hints, I would rather say. It gives you a frame, but within that frame, you are an individual. And it's so hard, sometimes to start. So, better to have some rules in the beginning and try them and feel like, wow, I never thought about trying that. But that helps. And then you try another rule and you go like, yeah, nice try, but that didn't work for me.
Mm.
So for me, Ayurveda is more that, as I said, more a frame, a set of recommendations that are for you to try out. And when you just start from scratch and you have no idea which direction to go to, you wish for some rules,
Yeah.
right? But don't get caught in them, because every day is different. And that's what Ayurveda is teaching. When the climate is different, you might feel different within yourself. When it's raining, you feel different from when it's sunny. When you didn't get a good night's sleep, your digestion is different from when you just feel like, I don't know, really strong. And yeah, so
Angry.
yeah, it teaches you to be intuitive, to tune in to what's the situation now.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that it's funny since I've always been one of those people that are really committed. I'm a manifesting generator and I go all in, but I also can do the opposite. I can either go like I do my, I do focus on doing my practice every single day and I'm very committed, and or I'll do a kitchery cleanse and I'm very committed, or I can have moments where I'm like I don't feel like doing anything. And I think the process of Ayurveda is actually allowed less of the highs and the lows in my life, but also in intuitive eating in terms of using food quite a lot to emotionally eat. And now being really intuitive, I feel like the more that we learn and practice Ayurveda and embody it, the less we actually use the tools and techniques. It's the more that we are naturally in flow with the rhythm of ourselves, with nature. And now I just really yeah, I can just tell if something's going to serve me, if a hamburger is going to serve me right now, or if it's going to make me feel ugh, and then the next day feel not so great, and have that domino effect. Or I can tell when my body can handle a pizza and it's absolutely fine, and having that yeah, inner confidence in myself that I really can navigate myself, and through working with clients and really understanding how everyone's so different, and really realizing that what works for me may not work for somebody else, which I really find fascinating. Have you
Yeah.
yeah, how did you start Ayurveda? Like what did you what sparked your curiosity for learning this ancient science? So obviously when you learn about it, it was about 10 years ago, so it was Ayurveda now is still not very common. So back then it probably was really uncommon.
Yeah, I get back to that in a second because you said something really interesting before. And I think that's also a really important connection between the emotional level and intuition. And that's what also was the goal when I started writing the book. I wanted to create something that not says intuitive eating is just listening to your body, because your body gives you a whole lot of signals. And if you don't know how to interpret that, if you don't clear a lot of stuff that's just not in balance and gives you a wrong signal, or you might interpret a signal as something it's not.
Mm.
I just love that, the work with yogic philosophy, the idea of, you know, intuition can come through if we are fully nourished on so many levels, right? And if we work with different practices to just sharpen our intuition, it's not something that you just discover. It's like you said, it takes knowing yourself, getting to know yourself. It takes, simple clearing practices, just as the breath, body awareness, so to have that as something integrated and just get out of our minds for a second, but at the same time saying our mind is nothing bad, it helps us to make good decisions. But what research is showing us now is that we need our feelings to make good decisions. It's not all in the mind. And like before, we thought, oh, if we have like a really analytical mind, and those people, they make the best decisions. And then they had like cases where parts of the brain were destroyed, and it was a part where our feelings are seated, and their mind would just go in loops thinking about whether this was the best way or this was the best way, and they could not stop thinking about what to do on a rational level, because the feeling part was missing and they could not come to a conclusion anymore. They were not able to take decisions. And the book is also about that, that it's not about being more rational, it's about, integrating the two things. And your feelings actually are not in the way of eating healthy. There's no such thing as like, you know eating without emotions.
Mm.
And yeah, that's another really important thing I like to add. So
Yeah, I love
getting
it.
back to your other question, what sparked that hunger, I would say, for the Ayurvedic knowledge? I think it's just a big topic in my life. I have a huge love for knowledge and to dig deep on any topics that are related to biology, to genetics, to nutrition, to health. And I think, yeah, there was always this love for these topics. And I just realized that this is something that comes easy to me. And I think just being on that journey, I think I never stopped asking myself questions. And it's not about that outer appearance, like on a educational level. It's more about that I really want to know about those things. And I think I intuitively know when there's more that I need to know. Same with nutritional science, it was such a great field, or it's still such a great field, but I felt there was something more, and when I went to India, I think I was 24 something, just by myself to study Ayurvedic medicine. um, I came to India and just know that this was the place I had been before, maybe same as you, and learning more about Ayurveda. And also I did 3 different yoga teacher trainings in India,
Mm.
also one more yoga therapy training in Germany. Just when I got in contact with that knowledge, I just knew in my body that this was something that has some truth in it, and that this is something that will be of great benefit to other people as well. And yeah, so I really try to find the parallels, not just going from, oh, this is wrong and this is right, but how can I make them work as a team?
Yeah, I love that. I think because often the people and like the whole idea behind the Dharma journey is really inviting people on that are living their Dharma, living their purpose, really passionate about what they do, sharing their mission with the world, which you are. And often or not, like someone will be listening to this. Maybe they have experience emotional eating, or they want to tap into that intuitive aspect of themselves. Like, how can I practice intuitive eating? Maybe you can share a little couple of tips that can help people start the process of becoming more in tune with their body and what to eat, intuitively.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is that your emotions are okay. There's nothing wrong with being angry, with being sad, with fear, with yeah, sometimes also to feel shame, and there's nothing wrong also with joy. I think we each grow up with a certain set of emotions that we feel comfortable in. And that can mean there's a lot of anger, but we don't want that anger, right? It could mean that we grow up being angry, but then we realize that the underlying feeling is sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we could grow up in a set of emotions that, or like a traumatic situation that made us afraid of being joyful, because we always had that fear that when we experience joy, it will be taken from us. So each of us has, you know, those emotions, and they can be a force, right? They can be something that's really important. For example, if Gandhi wasn't angry, he couldn't have changed, the whole system. There was anger. It's always the point, how do I express that anger? And if anger is something that sparks something within me to say, hey, I get the feeling that something here is not okay, and I'm going to stand up for this. And I do it from a place of love, right? So there's nothing wrong with anger. If he would have swallowed that anger, there would have been a whole different story then. Not good for himself, not good for the benefit of, the whole of India. So I invite you to look at your emotions in a different way, to see where anger has its benefits, like the clarity, to stand up and act. But if it's a situation you cannot change, you do harm with being angry, because, it's just like you will, yeah, get stuck in the body, because you cannot change the situation. So sadness is the better emotion. Some things we cannot change and they're really, really sad. So it's okay to be sad about it. And the same with joy. We don't have to be joyful all the time. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we see a lot when people just talk about the yogic path. It's always about light and love, and you have to be joyful and then you're imbalanced. And I don't think that's true. I think you're in balance when all your emotions have their own space where they can be and where you acknowledge them. And I think that's a big part when we talk about emotional eating. It's we eat because we want to swallow that emotion, right? Um,
Press it, yeah.
and yeah, so I think that's one thing. Just be with that and just acknowledge what that emotion can mean. Shame can mean that you reflect what you did. We need a little bit of shame to think about others as well, but a whole lot of shame, being ashamed of yourself, that's not a good thing. But still, it's a valid emotion, right?
Yeah, I often in my life I've definitely used food as a way to suppress emotions, and I noticed that as soon as I started to regulate my nervous system, my emotions, and really become in tune with how I'm feeling, and find, practices, tools, meditations to really bring myself back into, to balance. I obviously feel the emotion coming out, rage or and whatever it is, not suppressing it, but then actually being able to integrate it into our life as a tool for inner growth and transformation, instead of feeling guilty for having these emotions. I think it's really important. Like you said, we don't want to swallow our emotions, and that's when we can't digest our food, because we can't digest our life experiences. And that's been a huge game changer for me, because when I've
Yeah.
seen myself and my clients, when they keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again, that the mind body connection, it's physically, it's going to be digestive issues, not being able to absorb, but on a mental level, that samana vayu, which is that capacity to assimilate and transform, what we're eating, it's transforming into us. It's the same on an emotional level. When we experience any form of emotion, and good or bad or whatever you want to call it, we have to be able to process it. And I think that's why I love the sister science of yoga and Ayurveda and Tantra, because they give us tools for each component, the mind, body, the spirit, to really know ourselves on that deep level, and from that make better choices.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about in Ayurveda too. You have Agni, the digestive fire, on many different levels. It's not only the food you digest, it's your emotion that you digest, it's the thoughts that you have to digest, right? And so that means digestion on a whole different level, right? So not only, yeah, on that level of food and nutrition, but also think about your emotion and your thoughts in that way. And like everything you see, everything um, that gets into your body, like every impression needs to be digested. And I think that's the first thing to start from before you even start with all this meditation and all the practices that are really, really great. But if you use them as a way to suppress your emotions again, that's not a good thing. They help you to integrate your emotions, you know? They help you to spark the digestive fire on those different levels, you know? And yeah, I think that would be the next step then. Just tune into practices that feel really good for you. Not because someone else says that if you breathe in on an 8 count and breathe out on an 8 count, that's the next thing and you will be freed from all your mental
Issue.
stuff, you know, but feel into, hey, is my body ready to breathe in on a count of 8? Or might I take a step back and see, you know, where do I have maybe blocks or something that where it feels tight, but not and judging yourself about that. Just, you know, get more into like, I would say it's like a love relationship. First, you have to get to know about what your partner yeah prefers and what he likes, how he works, you know. So that's the same thing when you approach your body. See it as this, you know, and you don't go to your partner, I mean ideally you don't go there and say, you know what, you have to change that. When you breathe in like this, you need to be like that, you know. So first of all, you know, be okay with that. And I mean, so many things will mm, evolve through that practice without you focusing on it, you know?
Yeah, it's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
And what would you say your mission is? Like, what is, obviously, you've got incredible things. You've got your Ayurvedic training, teacher training program that's a year long. I think, is it just in German?
So far, it's only in German. Yeah.
For the listeners that are German, you can always tune into that. But obviously, I think your book is in German too. But hopefully, in the future, you might be doing it internationally. But what is your mission right now? Like, what is feeling really strong in your fire? What are you wanting to create and really help people with?
That's so hard for me to say when I want to frame it as a mission, you know, because I always went with my gut feeling, and that's true. I always feel where I'm pulled next, and I always go with what the world needs in that sense that, you know, I feel my clients and also people who took the teacher training, they sparked so many ideas within me because they were like, oh, you know, we would love to get this program from you. Could you offer this in more detail or whatever? But I would say in everything that I do, I want to create a place of abundance within the individual. I want to create a feeling of people appreciating themselves. And I want them to feel that they are connected to something that's incredibly powerful, because we each come to this world with incredible gifts, you know. And I see that in my students too. They have so many different gifts that I don't have, right? And
Yeah.
they go and they take my knowledge and they transform it into something that gives value to maybe a different group of people. And I just wish that in everything I do, I keep the tradition, but I apply it to the individual and something that is of use right now, that everybody can understand, that everybody can connect to, right? Um, so I think it's better to put it like this: what do I want to create? And I want to stay close to the source, right? So not to dilute down this knowledge. And I think my gift is maybe to go really really deep into these things, and from that depth I want to create something though that's easily understandable, but it's not lacking that depth. And I would be really sad, because Ayurveda is so deep, if that depth would, yeah, be be gone. And that's what I unfortunately see. And yeah, I mean, it's good that we have a lot of information on the internet, but unfortunately, it's not always information that's rooted in some deep knowledge or truth.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think with the new age of people, like you said, the information gets diluted, and the original source of the information, it's not as potent, it's not as powerful, because maybe the people that are teaching it are not as embodied, and they're not, and that's a thing I really love about you, is your embodiment and the science behind it, as well as obviously you've trained with Vasant Lad, and you've been to India, and you've really gone deep. You've gone deep on your Dharma journey, which is incredible, and I really honor that. It's really cool.
And it's something my teacher in India said to me: be always aware that you never teach the soup of the soup of the soup of the soup of someone, you know, because then it's super diluted, right? So yeah, I really, I'm really thankful that I had great teachers, and really committed teachers,
Yeah,
not, to the fame or anything, just to the knowledge. And I also, that's one big wish I have for myself, that I always stay committed to the knowledge.
amazing. And I know that anyone that's listening, if you start to apply Ayurveda yoga into your life, it really speaks for itself. We can talk about it and we can share it, but really it comes from a place within, and for me it's been life changing, and I'm just so honored to be able to interview people that are also on this path, that can share a different perspective of Ayurveda. And I learned so much from your perspective, because I feel that it's so easy to get stuck in one tunnel of vision. So really inviting people on with different worldviews and different backgrounds is really opening my experience to this knowledge, and how I can show up as a better teacher and practitioner, and obviously share with our community this powerful tradition of Ayurveda. Um, would you like to share a little bit of an Ayurvedic Dinyacharya, like a routine or something they can implement, from today or tomorrow, to really regulate Agni, or to, come back into balance through a little bit of digestive insight.
Yeah, I think maybe most of your listeners are familiar to like some things that you can integrate in the morning in your morning routine, but that are just like for me such solid things that I don't want to miss, you know. And it's just, you know, when you get up in the morning, first thing I do is to scrape my tongue, you know, and that gives me back my taste. I think that's so important in life, you know. We even have certain sayings about, you know, how life tastes, or a person can be salty, whatever, you know. And a lot of things are like how you integrate information or take up information. It's about your taste. So, you know, it's not only about eliminating the toxins from your tongue, it's also about, yeah, how you taste the morning and how the morning tastes, right? So, and then I like to have warm water just to get the digestion flowing. And that feels so much different. And then I get into the body, I just move a little bit. And it can be really simple movements. You know, does not have to be full yoga routine. They're just like some simple stretches because I get tense in certain areas and I just give them like a stretch. Um, really feel into what the body needs right now. Don't make it really complicated. And then I sit down for meditation. And just that little routine of moving the body in the morning. Also, you know, first thing to do is for me when I get up to say hello to the day. You know, I open the doors. You can open your windows wherever you are and just say hello, new morning, right? Just to step into the day with that awareness. And then also with my meditation, I do a little bit of japa. I repeat my mantra. I have some silent moments where I just sit, do some deep breathing. And yeah, that's my, I would say these are my essentials. And from there, now I allow my day to start a little bit different every day. Um, I know that I have some tasks that I need to do during the day, but also I know that sometimes for me, really strict routines are not really good. For other people, they are really, really helpful, you know. And for me, I really have to see what the day brings and then go according to that. So that helps me, yeah, to stay in, I would say, in that flow. Sometimes it goes really well, sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, you have those days, but just to be okay with that. And um yeah, so I would say that's an important thing also, even if you have a full schedule, to make some time in between to digest. And I don't refer only to the food. Of course, it's good, you know, if you have a meal that you might go for a little walk or just take a little bit time to sit down and rest. But also, like during the day, to have little breaks in between where you just look out of the window and your thoughts can go wild, you know, um, about stuff you might envision, or maybe just get lost in a daydream, whatever. Um, just to allow yourself to have little breaks in between. And that could also be something else, you know. For me, I just sometimes when I'm in nature, I just like to sit and dream for a while, you know. And it's so important to give yourself these breaks because they bring you back to what is right now. And if you're only working according to a schedule, you get tense, you know. You cannot digest, you know, not only your food, but also if you work and you handle a lot of information or other stuff, your body cannot digest anymore at some point. And at the end of the day, you feel so exhausted, you feel empty, you know. And most of us, we try to feel to fill that void with food, right? So I will recommend you take those tiny breaks in between. You do whatever you feel like, painting,
Making
whatever.
tea. I always make my tea. I make my tea and then I cuddle my dogs for like 5 minutes. I used to check Instagram, but now I've turned my Instagram off in the day and I only go on it at night just so I'm more focused, which I think is, when you get messages from people and then you start replying and then you realize, oh, I've just spent 20 minutes on my phone and now I'm out of my flow. So, but yeah, I love that, and I'm with you on that. That morning routine is very similar to mine as well, and I walk my dogs as well in the morning, but it just gives me that connection to nature, that connection to myself, um, and that that connection to my mission and my dharma, which is to be of service and to grow and to connect with beautiful people like yourself. So thank you so much for joining the Dharma journey. How can people reach out? And I know a lot of your stuff's in German, but I know a lot of my clients, the people listening are German, so it's always nice for us to connect with new people.
Yeah, hopefully, all the programs will be translated. That's definitely a goal.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for the future. But you can find me on Instagram at Dania Schumann, or on Facebook at Dr. Dania Schumann. And my website is daniaschumann.com. Yeah, so that's a good way to connect. And I'm on Pinterest too.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll put all of Dania's links on the show notes. Send you so much love, and I'm sure I'll see you soon. Dania and I spent Christmas Day together, and she made the most incredible apple crumble. Is that recipe going to be in your book?
It's not in the book, but you know what? I will put it on my website. And yeah, for everyone who's interested also to listen to the podcast, The Science of Life, you can find that too. There are a few episodes that are in English too. So there's one interview with Dr. Vasant Lad, which is a well-known Ayurvedic doctor. So yeah, for
Yeah,
all the English listeners or native speaking English speaking listeners, yeah, you can have a look at The Science of Life.
amazing. Yeah, I've not yet tuned into that podcast, but it's on my to-do list. Like I know I definitely want to listen in. I love him and love the teachings from him, and obviously now going through you and you're having that ripple effect in your community. So thank you for living purposely and living courageously, and thank you for having your time to come on the Dharma journey.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks for sharing your path with everyone and for the knowledge and work you put out there.
Thank you guys, send you so much love, and we'll see you next week on the Dharma journey. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to connect with us, my Instagram is @BriarRoots, @the Dharma Journey. Please feel free to send us your favorite episode, and we'd love to hear your feedback. If you want to reach and connect with me further, I offer weekly women circles every Sunday, also Ayurvedic healing programs, consultations. So all of my details are at the bottom. Thank you so much for listening. This is really a part of the Dharma Journey movement to bring us closer together, connection, community, collaboration, and really inspire one another on our path towards liberation. Thank you so much for listening. Have an incredible day. I hope.